Welcome to Bethel Online Education Hub. Learn anytime, anywhere. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Let's learn together, the Bethel way.
So now let's talk about the characteristic of life. A living entity, regardless of its size, structure, or behavior, is considered an organism because it is possess certain characteristics that most biologists agree to define life. These pictures are observed across a vast diversity of living things, from the simplest bacteria to the most complex plants and animals. The generally accepted characteristics of life includes locomotion, irritability, metabolism, growth, reproduction, cellular organization, adaptation, integration, and coordination. Together, these characteristics form the foundation of what we understand as life. An organism may express these traits in different ways, depending on its complexity and environment. But the presence of most of all of them is what sets living things apart from non-living matter. First, the first characteristics of life is locomotion. Locomotion is the ability of organisms to move from one place to another or to move parts of their body. This movement can essentials for finding food, escaping predators, reproducing, or adjusting to the environmental conditions. Organisms have developed various structures for movement, depending on their complexity. First, we have cilia, a short, hair-like projection that beat in coordinated waves to propel the organism forward or move substances along its surface. Next is the flagella, a long whip-like tails that rotate or whip back and forth to enable movement. Next is the pseudopodia, an extension of cells, cytoplasm, that allows the organism to flow or crawl along the surface. The last is the muscle, a specialized tissues in animals that contract and relax to produce movement from walking and flying to swimming and running. Within many of these organisms, there exists a living substance called protoplasm, which includes all the contents of the cells. Inside the protoplasms, an intracellular movement known as cyclosis. Cyclosis occurs. This is the streaming motion of the cytoplasm that helps distribute nutrients, organelles, and other materials within the cells. Cyclosis is especially important in plant cells and certain single-celled organisms, as it supports both internal movement and interaction within the environment. The next characteristics of life is irritability or responsiveness. Irritability is the ability of living things to detect and respond to changes in their environment. called stimuli. These stimuli can come from the external environment outside the organism or internal environment inside the organism's body. This responsiveness is essential for survival, allowing organisms to protect themselves, finding food, reproduce, and maintaining balance. Common environmental factors that living things respond respond include: first is light. Plants grow towards light. Next is temperature. Animals may shiver to generate heat or sweat to cool down. Certain organisms become more active in warmer conditions. Next is pressure and tension. Some deep sea creatures are adapt to a high pressure. Plants may close their leaves when touched. Next is chemicals. Organism can detect food sources, toxins, or pheromones. For example, salmon sends chemical cues to return to their spawning grounds. Last is gravity. Roots grow downward, while stems grow upward. The ability to respond ensure that living things can adapt their behavior or physiology to meet the demand of changing conditions. For example, humans quickly pull their hands away from something hot, and bacteria may swim towards nutrients or away from harmful substances. Next characteristic we have is metabolism. Metabolism refers to the sum total of all chemical reaction taking place within a living organism to sustain life. These reactions are responsible for obtaining energy, building and repairing body structures, and eliminating waste. Metabolism ensures that every cell has the resources and energy it needs to function properly. Metabolic processes are generally divided into two main types. First is the anabolism, the building up phase of metabolism, where smaller molecules are combined to form larger, more complex molecules. This process requires energy and is used for growth, repair, and storage of energy. Examples include protein synthesis from amino acid and formation of cell walls in plants. The next process of metabolism is the catabolism, the breaking down phase where complex molecules are broken into simpler one. Releasing energy is in the process. For example, during cellular respiration, glucose is broken down to release energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate. Both anabolism and catabolism occur continuously and in balance within living things. Without metabolism, organism will not be able to grow, reproduce, respond to the environment, or maintain their internal functions. Our next characteristic of life we have is growth. Growth is the process by which an organism increases their sizes, mass, and complexity. This can occur through an increase in the number of cells and or the size of individual cells. In living organisms, this type of growth is called intussusception, meaning that new materials are added within the existing structure of organisms, allowing it to expand and develop from inside. In animals, growth typically begins when a zygote, a single cell formed by the union of sperm and egg, start to develop. Through the process called mitosis, the zygote undergoes successive cell division, producing more and more cells. Over time, these cells undergo differentiation, meaning become specialized to perform specific function, such as muscles cells, nerve cells, or blood cells. Growth in plants also follows a similar principles, but occurs mainly in regions called meristem, where cells are actively dividing. This allows plants to grow in height, thickness, and roots length throughout their lifetime. In all living things, growth is not just a matter of getting bigger. It involves becoming more complex and organized, moving the organism from a simple form to a more developed and functional one. Next, we have reproduction, a characteristics of life. Reproduction is the ability of living things to produce new individuals that are closely similar to themselves. This process ensures the continuation of species from one generation to the next and is one of the most essential characteristics of life. Without reproduction, species would eventually disappear. There are two main types of reproduction: the asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. Asexual reproductions involve only one parent and produce offspring that are genetically identical to the parent. This method is common in single-celled cells, like bacteria, as well as in some plants and animals through processes like budding, fragmentation, or spore formation. Next is the asexual reproduction. Involves two parents of each contributing genetic material. The union specialized sex cells or gametes. This sperm and the eggs forms a zygote which develops into a new individual sexual reproduction. Increase genetic variation which can improve species' ability to adapt to change environment. Whether simple or complex, reproduction is vital for maintaining life on Earth, ensuring that the trait and characteristics of lives of living things are passed on the future generation. Next, we have the characteristics of life. Adjustment. Adjustment refers to the ability of living organisms to make changes in response to its surrounding. so that it can survive and function effectively. These changes can be short term or long term. This capacity to adapt to the given situation allows organisms to cope with environmental challenges. We also have integration. Integration is the process by which different parts or systems of an organism work together in harmony to produce a coordinated response. For example, when a person touches a hot object, sensory receptors in the skin detect the heat and send signals to the brain, and the brain detects that the muscles to pull the hand away. This is the result of the nervous and muscular system working together. The last characteristics of life is coordination. Coordination ensures that all body systems operate smoothly and efficiently, preventing conflicting actions and enabling the organism to interact successfully with both its internal and external environment. In multicellular organisms, this coordination is often managed by the nervous system and the endocrine system. Together, adjustment, integration, and coordination enable an organism not only to adapt to their environmental changes, but also to maintain harmony with other organisms in ecosystem, ensuring survival and balanced interaction within the web of life. Now, let's talk about the origin of life. Where did the first life came from? This is one of the most profound questions in science. Throughout history, scientists and philosophers have proposed various explanations for the beginning of life on Earth. While the exact process is still not fully understood, many scientific discussions focus on the process of evolution to explain how life developed and diversified. According to the evolutionary theory, life began with a very simple forms, mostly like microscopic single-celled organism, and gradually became more complex over millions of years. These progressions from simple to complex occurred through natural process such as mutation, variation, and natural selection, enabling an organism to adapt to their changing environments. The earliest life forms are believed to have arisen from the non-living matter under conditions very different from today's Earth. Over time, these primitive forms of life evolved into the vast diversity of organisms that now inhabited our planet. Now, let's talk about the theories of the origin of life. First, we have the special creation theory. The special creation theory is the belief that all life, the earth, and the universe were created by a supreme being or creator. According to this view, life did not arise through natural process alone, but was intentionally brought into existence in its presence from by divine power. This theory emphasized that God is the ultimate source of all creation and that with him nothing is impossible. Many religious traditions around the world have creation stories that describe how life and the world came into being, often portraying the creators as purposeful, powerful, and benevolent. While the spatial creation theory is rooted in faith and religious belief rather than scientific evidence. It continues to be embraced by many people as way of understanding humanity's origin and purpose in life. Next, we have the spontaneous generation theory. The spontaneous generation theory is an ancient idea that life could arise suddenly and directly from non-living matter. This belief emerged long before the inventions of microscopes, when people relied on their naked eyes to observe the world without scientific tools to study microorganisms. They explain the appearance of living things as a natural and spontaneous event. According to this theory, living organisms could originate from inanimate objects under certain conditions. Common examples people believe include dust, dust providing fleas, and rotting meat, giving rise to maggots. Next is the bread and wheat, left in the dark corner, producing mice. Spontaneous generation was once widely accepted because it seems to match everyday observations. For instances, maggots peering on the meat that has been left out. However, this theory was late challenged and eventually disproven by scientific experiments. Most famously by Louis Pasteur in the 19th century, who demonstrate that life only comes from pre-existing life. However, several experiments conducted by different scientists over time disproved the spontaneous generation theory. We have the Francesco Redi, an Italian physician who placed meat in several jars, leaving some uncovered. Some are covered with glaze and some are seals. Maggots only appeared in the uncovered jars, showing that they came from flies, not from the meat itself. Next, we have Lazzaro Spallanzani, an Italian biologist who boiled nutrients brought in sealed flasks, preventing microorganisms from appearing. This suggested that microorganisms came from the air, not from the broth. Next, we have the Louis Pasteur, a French scientist who conducted a famous swan neck flask experiment. He boiled broth in flask with curved neck that let air in but kept dust and microorganisms out. No microbial growth occurred unless the plasm was stilled, allowing particles to enter. Pasteur's work finally disapproved spontaneous generation and support the biogenesis theory that life comes only from existing life. This experiment marked the end of spontaneous generation as a scientific explanation from the origin of life and paved the way of modern microbiology. Next, we have biogenetic theory. The biogenetic theory states that lives came only from the pre-existing life. In other words, living organisms produce other of their own kind. Animals gave rise to animals, and plants gave rise to plants, maintaining the continuity of life form from generation to generation. This idea, often summarized by the phrase life begets life. A related concept is expressed in the phrase ontogeny recapitulates polygeny, coined by Ernest Haeckel, a German biologist and philosopher. This means that the development of an individual organism reflects, to some extent, the evolutionary history of its species, for example, in their early stage of development. Human embryos display features such as gill like slits and tails, which resemble structures found in some ancestral species. Although Haeckel's statement is not entirely accurate in modern evolutionary biology, it helped promote the idea of all living things share evolutionary connections. Advances in science, particularly in microbiology and genetics, have confirmed the principles of biogenesis, showing that life consistently arises from other life, never spontaneously, from non-living matter under present-day conditions. Next, we have the abiogenetic synthesis theory. The abiogenetic synthesis theory proposes that life began in the primordial seas, a vast bodies of waters that formed when water vapor in Earth's early atmosphere condensed and liquefied. These ancient oceans were rich in simple chemical compounds such as carbon dioxide, ammonia, and water vapor. Under the influence of sunlight, volcanic heat, and possibly lightning, these simple substances combine to form more complex compound that could serve as the building blocks of life. According to this theory, there was a progressive development from non-living matter to living organisms. Tiny particles called colloidal substances may have eventually given rise to primitive life-like structures, such as viruses. One of the leading proponents of this idea was Alexander Oparin, a Russian biochemist. Oparin suggests that the first organisms were formed from the organic chemicals and through sim- simpler process than those that sustain life today. From basic elements, carbon, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur, small molecules formed, which later combine into more complex compounds such as proteins and carbohydrates. These compounds gathered into tiny droplets called coacerbates, coacerbates, which had some life-like properties, such as the ability to grow and divide. Over time, the oceans become a hot soup of organic molecules, where the first cells eventually formed. It is believed that the first living cells were heterotrophic, meaning they could not make their own food. Instead, they absorbed nutrients from their surrounding environment and until they more advanced form develop the ability to reproduce their own organic food through processes like photosynthesis. Now, let's talk about other theories of the origin of life. First, we have the beneath the ice theory. Some scientists suggest that around 3 billion years ago, much of Earth's surface was covered by thick layer of ice, possibly hundreds of meters deep. This icy covering may have formed because the young sun was far less intense than it's today, producing less heat and light. According to this theory, the ice act as a proactive shield, preventing harmful ultraviolet radiation from reaching the organic compound forming Earth's early ocean. Beneath the frozen surface, liquid matter could still exist, kept from freezing solid by geothermal heat from volcanic activity and hydrothermal vents. This cold, stable environment may have allowed simple organic molecules to interact over long periods without being destroyed by environmental hazards, eventually leading to the formation of primitive life forms. The ice essentially served as both an protector and preserver, creating a safe incubator for life's earliest chemical reactions. Next, we have the panspermia or cosmic theory. The panspermia theory, also called the cosmic theory, suggests that life on Earth may have originated from outer space. According to this idea, microscopic life forms or their resistance spores, sometimes called cosmozoa, were carried to Earth by meteorites, comets, or interstellar dust. These spores would have been highly resistant to extreme conditions, such as the cold vacuum of the space and intense radiation, allowing them to survive the long journey between planets or even across star system. Upon arriving on the early Earth, they could have found suitable conditions in the oceans or on the land to grow, reproduce, and eventually evolve into diversity of life we see today. While panspermia does not explain how life originally began in the universe, it offers the possibility that life is widespread and the earth may have been seeded from elsewhere. This theory is supported in parts in parts by the discovery of organic molecules such as amino acids in meteorites and in interstellar clouds, suggesting that the building blocks of life may be common throughout the cosmos. Next, we have the electricity theory. The electricity theory proposed that lightning may have played a key role in the origin of life on Earth. In the planet's early history, the atmosphere is believed to have contained simple gases such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, and nitrogen. Volcanic activity would have released these gases in large amount, creating dense and turbulent clouds. When lightning struck through these volcanic clouds, the intense electrical energy could have broken chemical bonds in the atmospheric gases and rearranged the atoms to form more complex organic molecules. Laboratory experiment most famously the Miller-Urey experiments in 1953 prove that electricity passing through a mixture of simple gases could produce amino acids and simple sugars. According to this theory, repeated lightning strikes over millions of years could have generated a vast supply of organic molecules, which then accumulate in the Earth's early oceans. These compounds may have combined into more complex structures, eventually giving rise to the first living cells. Next, we have the RNA world hypothesis. The RNA world hypothesis suggests that before the evolution of DNA and proteins, life on Earth may have passed through the stage in which self-replicating RNA molecules played the central role in storing genetic information and catalyzing life-sustaining chemical reactions. RNA or ribonucleic acid is unique because it combines two key properties necessary for life. The first is the information storage. Like DNA, RNA can store genetic instructions in the sequence of its nucleotides. Next, we have the catalytic activity. Certain RNA molecules called ribozymes can act like enzymes, speeding up chemical reactions without the need for proteins. In this hypothetically early stage, RNA molecules could have formed spontaneously in Earth's primordial environment and the began to re- and environment and then began to replicate themselves over time. Natural selections may have favored more efficient and stable RNA sequence. Eventually, DNA evolved as one more stable molecule for long-term information storage, and proteins evolved as more efficient catalysts, replacing most ribozymes functions. This hypothesis is supported by modern biologists evidence that RNA still plays crucial role in living organisms, such as in protein synthesis and in the ribosome's catalytic core. This hints that RNA may indeed be a molecular fossils of life's earliest days. Next, we have metabolism and reaction theory. In contrast to the RNA world hypothesis, the simple metabolism and reaction theory proposed that life did not begin with genetic molecules like RNA or DNA. Instead, it suggests that life arose from a series of self-sustaining chemical reactions within Earth's primordial soup, the nutrient-rich mixture of the water and organic compound. According to this idea, the Earth's the environment provide the right conditions for simple molecules to continuously react with one another, gradually forming more complex compounds such as sugars, amino acids, and lipids. These molecules could have interact in cycles, forming primitive metabolic pathways that captured and used energy from the surroundings. For example, from sunlight or geothermal heat. Over time, these reaction networks may have been increasingly organized, eventually giving rise to the structures capable of growth, replication, and adaptation, key features of life. These theories emphasize that metabolism may have preceded genetics, meaning that life's chemistry came first, and genetic systems like RNA and DNA evolved later to preserve and pass on information. Next, we have the submarine hydrothermal vents theory. Submarine hydrothermal vents, also called deep sea vents, are opening on the ocean floor where superheated water rich in minerals is released from beneath the earth crust. These vents, often located along mid-ocean ridge, supports vast and diverse ecosystem. Despite the absence of light, life here thrives on chemosynthesis. Chemosynthesis is a process where organisms produce energy from chemical reactions rather than from sunlight. Scientists suggest that life on Earth may have originated in this extreme environment around 4 billion years ago. The constant supply of heat, minerals, and chemical energy from the vents could have created ideal conditions for the formation of organic molecules. The natural compartments within the vent structures may have act like tiny reactors, concentrating chemicals and allowing complex reactions to take place. Unlike theories that rely on sunlight, this hypothesis shown that life could begin in complete darkness, powered by Earth's internal heat. It also helped explain how life might exist on other worlds with subsurface oceans such as Europa or Enceladus. And lastly, we have the clay breeding ground theory. Researchers at the University of Glasgow, Scotland, have proposed that clay may have served as natural incubator for life's building blocks. Clay particles have a unique structure with layers and surfaces that can attract and hold organic molecules, bringing them into close contact. Minerals crystals within clay could have helped align and organize simple organic molecules into structured patterns. This arrangement may have encouraged chemical reaction that led to more complex compounds, such as nucleotides and amino acids. Over time, these molecules have self-assembled into larger functional structure, potentially giving rise to the first primitive life forms. This theory highlights how the Earth's own minerals might have played a direct role in organizing matter into living systems without the need for an external source like meteorites or lightning. Interestingly, this idea also supports the possibility that life might originate anywhere with similar clay-rich environment, even on the other planet or moons. Okay, now let's proceed with the unifying themes in the study of life. Biology is a vast science, but it's became easier to understand when we recognize all living things, no matter how different, are connected by certain common principles. These guiding ideas or unifying themes help us explain the diversity of life while showing its underlying unity. First, we have the biological system. A system is a combination of parts that works together to form a more complex organization. The unique properties of a system came from the arrangement of its parts and interaction between them. Just like a machine, It's more than just a individual's gear and bolts. A living organism is more than just its separate organs or cells. The way these parts work together gives rise to life. First, the human body. Our body is like the of any living organism is living system. It is made up of smaller system, the nervous system, circulatory, respiratory system, and others. Each with specific roles, yet all working together to maintain life. This cooperation makes the whole organism more than just some of its parts. Next, we have the ecosystem. A forest, a coral reef, or even a pond is also a biological system. An ecosystem's properties depends on how its components, like plants, animals, microorganisms, water, air, and soils, interact. For example, plants produce oxygen. Herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat herbivores, and decomposers recycle nutrients back into soil. Next, we have the chemical needs. Any organisms in ecosystem requires a constant supply of certain chemicals such as water, oxygen, and nutrients to survive. These needs are met through the interconnected relationship in the system. The last, we have the levels of life. The theme of biological system applies all levels for organization in biology, from the biosphere down to the molecular level. Next, we also have the cellular basis of life. One of the most fundamental principles in biology is that all living things are made up of cells. A cell is a basic unit of life. It is the smallest structure capable of carrying out all the processes necessary for living. Cells as a building blocks. Every organism, whether a tiny bacterium or towering tree, is composed of cells. In cellular organisms, a single cells perform all the life functions needed for survival. In multicellular organisms, cells are specialized. Different types of cells are adapt to perform specific functions. Cells in multicellular organisms are organized into high level of complexity. For example, cells, the basic unit of structure and functions in living things. Tissues, a group of similar cells that work together to perform a specific functions. Next, we have the organ, a structure made up of different types of tissues working together to perform a particular job. Next, we have the organ system, a group of organs that work to carry out a major life functions. Last is the organisms, the complete living things made up of many interacting organ systems. Next, we have the form and functions. The idea of form fits functions means that the shape, structure, and design of something are directly related to what it does. This relationship is seen everywhere, from the largest structure in nature to the tiniest parts of the cell. Forms and functions in organisms. For examples, the bird's wings. The aerodynamic shape of a bird's wings allow it to cut through the air with minimal resistance. The hollow yet strong structure of its bones reduce weight, making flight possible. Feathers are arranged to provide lift and control movement in the air. Another example is the fish fins. The streamlined shape of a fish body and fins help it glide through the water efficiently. Forms and functions at the cellular level. For examples, the nerve cells or the neurons. Birds have long extensions on their nerve cells to transmit signal quickly to their flight muscles. This specialized structure enables fast reaction time needed for flying. Another example is the red blood cells. Their round, flattened shape increases surface area for carrying oxygen in the blood. Next is the harmony of structure and purpose. In biology, how sometimes works is always tied with its structure. Whether it's the wing of an eagle, the leaf of the plant, or the enzymes inside the cell. The form of a biological feature has evolved to best serve its functions. Next, we have the reproduction and inheritance. The phrase, like Begget's leg, means that living things produce offsprings that resembles themselves. Whether it's a plants making seeds, animals giving birth, or bacteria splitting into two, all living organisms have the ability to reproduce and pass on traits to the next generation. Role of genes. Genes are units of heredity that determines the traits of an organism, such as eye color, height, flower, shape, or blood type. Genes are made up DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid, a molecule that contains the instruction for building and operating a living organism. These instructions are like biological blueprint, telling cells how to develop, grow, and functions. DNA, the information carrier. Every cell in your body contains a complete copy of your DNA. This DNA came from your parent, half from your mother and half from your father. The combination of DNA from both parents make you similar to your family but also unique as individual. Passing on genetic information. When cells divide, they copy their DNA so that each new cell has the exact same genetic instructions. This ensure that your body cells have all have the same set of genes to function properly. From fertilized eggs to fully formed organism. At the very start of life, a single fertilized egg contains all the DNA instructions needed to create an entire organism. This DNA guides the process of development, telling cells when to grow, divide, specialize, and form different body parts. Children often share physical traits like hair type, financial features, or skin color, and sometimes even behavioral tendencies with their parents. This is because the same genetic code is being passed down generation after generation. Interaction with the environment. No organism can survive in complete isolation. Every living thing is part of a larger ecosystem, a network of living organisms and their physical surroundings. As part of the system, organisms continuously interact with their environment, both influencing it and being influenced by it. Dependence on the environment. Example, plants. Obtaining water and nutrients from the soil. Absorb carbon dioxide from the air. Use sunlight as an energy resource to produce food through photosynthesis. Similar to animals. Animals get their food, oxygen, and shelter from the environment around them. As plant grows, their roots break up rocks and release acid that change the composition of the soil. This aspect this affects the microorganism and other living creatures that depend on the soil for survival. Plants release oxygen into atmosphere, which animals use for breathing. Interaction with the environment is never one-sided. Organism takes in resources they needed to survive. Organism back materials or energy that other living things can use. Examples: a tree takes in carbon dioxide and release oxygen, while animals takes in oxygen and release carbon dioxide, both benefiting from each other. Living things must maintain a daily balance between what they take from the environment and what they return to it. Disrupting this balance through pollution, habitat destruction, or climate change can affect the survival of an entire ecosystem. Next, we have energy and life. Energy is the fuel of life. Without it, no organism can survive, grow, or reproduce. All living things need a constant supply of energy to carry out their daily activities, from moving and growing to repairing cells and maintaining body functions. Energy in food. Human and other animals obtain energy in chemical form from food. Sugar, fats, and other fuel-like molecules contains stored chemical energy. Inside your cell, this energy is released through the cellular respiration and used for the for all the body's work, such as muscle movement, nerve signaling, and maintaining body temperature. Next is energy flow in ecosystem. Energy enters most ecosystem in the form of sunlight. Plants and other producers capture these sunlight through photosynthesis and store it as chemical energy in sugars. Consumers eat the plants or other animals to obtain this stored energy. Eventually, energy exceeds the ecosystem as heat. For example, a forest ecosystem. Sunlight strikes leaves of trees. Trees convert light energy into chemical energy. Herbivores eat the leaves and use the energy for movement, growth, and reproduction. Carnivores eat the herbivores and gain energy in turn. Energy is gradually lost as heat at each step. Energy conservation. Chemical energy from food is not just stored. It is transferred into other forms of energy depending on the organism's activity. We have the mechanical energy for movement, thermal energy to maintain body temperature, electrical energy for nerve impulse. This constant conversation keeps an organism alive and active. 4. The one-way flow of energy. Unlike nutrients, which are recycled, energy flows in one direction from the sun to the producer to the consumer and finally lost at heats. This is why ecosystems need a continuous supply of sunlight to sustain life. Next is what we call regulation. Living things must constantly adjust to change in their environment to survive. This ability to maintain stable internal condition despite external changes is called homeostasis. From Greek word homeo is same and stasis is equal to standing still. What is homeostasis? Homeostasis is the body's way of keeping condition, such as temperature, water balance, and pH with a narrow healthy range. Even when the outside environment changes directly, the internal environment remains stable enough for the organism cell to function properly. Organisms have control systems that monitor conditions inside the body. When a change is detected, the system triggers a response to bring conditions back to normal. This process often works through feedback loops when the body detects a different and responds to correct it. Example in temperature regulation. Your body's ideal core temperature is about 37 degrees Celsius. If your temperature rise, a thermostat in your brain, the hypothalamus detect that change. Then the hypothalamus signals sweat glands to produce sweat. As sweat evaporates, your body cools down. If the temperature drops too low, the hypothalamus signals your muscles to shiver, producing heat. Without homeostasis, even small changes in temperature, blood sugar, or water balance could damage cells or stop important biochemical reaction. Regulation ensures that all systems in the body works together smoothly for survival. Next, we have the adaptation. Adaptation is one of the key processes in biology that explains how living things thrive different environment. An adaptation is an inherited traits, a physical features, behavior, or physiological process that improves an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in its specific environment. These traits are not developed during an individual lifetimes. Instead, they are passed down through generation as a result of natural selection. Over many generations, individuals with traits that give them an advantage are more likely to survive and reproduce. Their offspring inherit these traits, and gradually, the entire population become better suited to its environment. Types of adaptation: structural adaptations, physical features of an organism. Next, we have the behavioral adaptations or actions or patterns of activity. Physiological adaptations, the internal body processes. Example, in desert environment, cacti or cactus have evolved thick stems to store water, spines to reduce water loss and protect against herbivores. The shallow roots that quickly absorb rainfall. In cold environments, penguins have layers of fat and tightly packed feathers to conserve heat. Adaptation allows species to cope with environmental change, such as climate change, predators, food shortage or competition. Without adaptation, species would unable to survive when conditions change, leading to extinction. We also have the evolution. In biology, evolution refers to the generation to generation change in the proportion of different inherited genes in a population. Over a long period, this genetic change can lead to the development of new species. In simpler terms, evolution is the process of change in living organisms over time. How evolutions happen? Evolutions happens in just like natural selection. The primary mechanism driving evolution is natural selection, a concept introduced by Charles Darwin. Natural selection worked like this. Individuals within a species show variation in traits, for example, like color, size, behavior. Some traits give individuals an advantage in surviving, reproducing, and in their environment. These advantageous traits are passed on the next generation over many generations. The traits become more common in the population. For example, the beetle population. Imagine a population of beetles that has both dark color and light colored individuals. In a certain environment, dark colored beetles are harder for predators to see, so they survive longer and reproduce more often. Over generation, the genes of coloration become more common, while the genes of light coloration become less common. The beetle population is said to be evolving because the genetic make up it's changing over time. Evolution explains the diversity of life on Earth. It shows how species adapt to changing environment and how all living organisms are connected through common ancestry. Biology reminds us that humans are part of biosphere, the global system that includes all living and their environments. As we learn more about our impact, we gain a better understanding of our responsibility to protect it. Life science explore what life is, how it began, and how living functions and interact. Various theories from spontaneous generation to biogenesis, panspermia, The RNA world attempt to explain life origins. Unifying themes in biology shows that all organisms are made of cells, have structure that fits their functions, reproduce and pass on DNA, interact with their environment, use and transfer energy, regulate internal conditions, adapt and evolve. Modern biology connects this idea to our real-world issues, improving health, agriculture, and environmental care. In exploring the origin of life and unifying themes of biology, we see that life is both a mystery and a masterpiece. From the earliest theory of how life began, whether in deep sea vents, ice landscape, or cosmic dust, to the intricate, intricate system and processes that keep our organisms alive today. Biology reveals a powerful truth. All living things are connected. The structure we observe, the energy we use, the adaptations we develop, and the genes we inherit all work together in a delicate balance between organisms and their environment. Modern biology not only deepens our understanding of life's beginnings, but also help us address real-world challenges in health, food, and environmental conversation. As we move forward, let us remember that studying life is more than learning facts. It's about appreciating the complexity, unity, and resilience of living systems, and recognizing our role in protecting the planet that sustains us all.